we absolutely will not and have not ever let anybody go from our place out into the street. We provide wraparound case management for each person. So that case manager will walk them through from a place of danger and trauma to one of safety and hope, whatever that takes.
Hi, I'm Jeff Holden. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion is to highlight a nonprofit organization in each weekly episode, giving that organization an opportunity to tell their story in their words to better inform and educate the respective communities they serve, as well as provide one more tool for them to share their message to constituents and donors. Our goal is to help build stronger communities through shared voices and to both encourage and support the growth of local nonprofit organizations through podcasting. Thanks to our founding partners for their foresight in helping us transform the way conversations start. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. Just as CapTrust, Runyon Saltzman, and Western Health saw value in supporting our program as founding sponsors, we're now able to offer another exclusive opportunity to reach the valuable audience we speak to. If you'd like to become a partner with us, please reach out and email me, jeff@hearmenowstudio.com, so I can share this new opportunity to become a valued sponsor of the program. I'll make an assumption. If you're listening to this program and you live in the greater Sacramento region, you love where we call home. But like any great place to live, there are challenges too. That's just a condition of being human. How the community engages to support those experiencing the challenges is what makes the community great. So where can one go when there's concern about human trafficking? How about domestic violence housing services? Crisis intervention, restraining orders, transportation, advocacy, legal consultation, youth services, child and family therapy. You see where I'm going. In this episode, I'm speaking with Faith Whitmore, CEO of one of our community's most intertwined and interwoven organizations that can't really do a thing without collaborating with some other nonprofit, law enforcement agency, or legal service. And I mean that in a wonderful and fabulous way. The story of the formation of the Family Justice Center won't be the biggest surprise in this episode, but the service they're providing and the way they're getting it done, well, you're just going to have to listen to find out. Faith Whitmore, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me.
I'm so excited to hear what you've got to offer. Before we get into the specifics of the organization, I want to touch on your background because it's really quite unique. You are a United Methodist pastor. You were a district director for a member of Congress, and you've held leadership roles or been involved in other nonprofits. Tell me how you ended up coming to the Family Justice Center.
So I've been blessed my entire life to be able to do meaningful work. And I look back and I can see clearly that each experience that I had, each vocation that I had, built on the next one. So I went from being a pastor to, a district director for a congressman, as you said. And some people said, well, how can you go from religion to politics? I said, well, really, it's all the same. There's a lot of parallels. But as a district director, a lot of our work was to serve the constituents in the community, and it was a very bipartisan effort at that level. So it was a lot of just helping people with immigration or passports or veterans issues, that kind of thing. So I'd been with a congressman for 3.5 years. We built an incredibly wonderful team that was I was confident could carry on without me. And I was presented this job description for this new entity they were hoping to create here in Sacramento. And I went down all the qualifications and I said, I'll be darned. I kind of can check every single one of those. And it's because I'd been in the community a long time. It's because I'd worked for the congressman as well. So I had lots of relationships in the community, and that's what it needed to start the Family Justice Center here in Sacramento. So that's how it happened. It was just kind of a fluke that a friend handed me that and said,
I'm smiling here because it came out when we were talking. I don't know if everybody heard it, but I'm going to repeat it because I think it's cute.
Oh, okay.
So they had to have faith.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
This is
it
going
took
to
a
work
lot
in
of
so
faith.
many ways.
Yeah.
And
All pun
you
intended.
happen to be Faith. So this is a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
It was former District Attorney Jan Scully that was at least partly responsible for getting this thing started. And the organization is actually part of a nationwide group of family justice centers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so let me give a little credit to Jan, or a lot of credit to Jan, because when she was in the district attorney's office, she worked in the family violence unit before she became the elected district attorney. And so she said these cases would come in, these perpetrators, these abusers would be brought to trial. And they would be dealt with one way or the other, probation or prison or jail time or whatever it was. But the victim would just disappear. And she found herself a lot of the time thinking, I wonder what happened to her or him, because it happens in both directions.
Sure.
So she said she found out about the Family Justice Center model, which has been named a best practice by the Department of Justice because of its collaborative mission. And so she said, I want to bring one of these Family Justice Centers here to Sacramento. And so the Family Justice Centers throughout the country, throughout the world, actually, there are 25 countries. There are 43 states that have family justice centers, and they're all under the umbrella of this Alliance for Hope, which provides structure, resources, coaching, whatever a center might need to get off the ground. So that's how it happened, because the Family Justice Center model is collaboration. It's bringing all the services to the victim. And Jan said, that's what we need. We need to care for the people. We need to care for the children who have been raised up in these situations so that, we can provide for them hope and safety.
With that support system now aware and people knowing that this is a much bigger than just Sacramento entity, unfortunately, we have that need in so many places, but fortunately, we do have the resource. Let's talk about the mission, the actual purpose of the organization. You have a hugely broad scope of service from youth to elder, and you have so many programs. If you could walk us through what exists underneath that umbrella of the Family Justice Center, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that question. We're a one-stop center for victims of domestic violence, elder abuse. And I want to stop here and say that 17 to 18% of the people we serve are elders.
I saw that stat. What an amazingly
That's a stunning statistic, and it's very sad. But before the Family Justice Center came into being in this community, if there was an elder that needed a restraining order, there were no options. They would go to the courthouse and they could get a packet, but either they had to try and navigate that, which can be up to 40 pages for an elder restraining order petition, or they'd have to go pay somebody. So I'm so grateful that we have that opportunity to serve that population. So it's domestic violence, elder abuse, human trafficking, sexual assault, and child abuse. And so our tagline is often, just bring them here and we'll take it from there. So we have all these services, but we can't do it alone. So we'll talk about the collaboration a little bit later. But in terms of the services and how we operate, we are open 5 days a week, 8:30 to 5. We wish we were open more, but we are located in a building that it's not owned by the county, but it has county services. So we have to follow the county schedule, and that limits us somewhat.
And does that give you access to the services you need because you're all in one place?
No.
Okay.
Yes and no. Not because we're there, but we create that access to all the services through our collaborations. So a client can come in the door, no questions asked, no immigration status required, no appointment needed. So they come in, they meet with a case manager, and they go through their story. They tell their story. And part of our intent is, let's just tell the story one time, because it can be so traumatizing to repeat it. And it's estimated that a victim who needs the services, if you're a victim of any one of those things, you can go to 30, 40 different agencies in the community. How exhausting is that? And if you have transportation challenges, or if you have children in tow, or whatever it might be, or you may not even know what exists, which is often the case. So they come in, they talk to a case manager, tell their story. The case manager does a danger assessment, and we have a form for that. And that's very interesting. There's a list of like 20 questions. And, have you been married before? Do you have children? A lot of it is geared toward the women, but we also have adjusted it for men. But in this case, do you have children by another marriage? Are there firearms? Has the person threatened suicide? Those kind of questions. Then you measure those on a scale, and it tells you what kind of danger you may be in. Well, so many of the people fill that out and can't believe what danger they're in because they've become accustomed.
They're living it. They're used to it, and they don't realize it.
And they've had to survive. So they've just acclimated to that. I liken it to the story of this frog that you put in cool water and then bring the temperature up and it dies because it's just become used to that. So that's what happens. And then a safety plan is put in place before, during, after. Safety planning is critical to everything that we do. So there we have somebody comes in, tells their story, and then the case manager lays out what I call a buffet of options and services available. And then together they choose what that person needs at that time. And always encourage to come back for more. If we can't do it all today, we'll do it tomorrow or next week or whatever. And then based on that, many of the people come in looking for restraining orders. So we have a team of 4 people on our legal team. All they do is restraining order petitions all day, every day. That gives you an idea. We have as many as 30 people coming in every single day. So that's the volume of work. And we are just one of a number of domestic violence agencies in the community. So if you think we have that much and they have that much, that gives you an indication, again, of how dire the situation is. So as far as our legal services, the legal team will help fill out the petition, which can be 40 to 65 pages long.
And cumbersome for somebody who's never done it.
Very cumbersome. We take it over to the courthouse. We are intentionally located directly across the street from the family court, so we can literally take that over for them. We try and take as much off of their plate as possible at that point. We file it for them. At the end of the day, we go pick it up. The client meets us there. We go over the order with them so they understand exactly what the court has ordered or not ordered. It's very important. And then one of the best things we've ever done is we've hired a private process server because safety is so important, and the most dangerous time in the victim's life is when the abuser understands game over. I am no longer in control. The court has taken that away from me. And so let me give you an example last night. This was amazing last night. We had a young woman come in. She had a 6-week-old baby. Oh. Bless her heart. And there she was. She got a restraining order. She mentioned that she was going to have the sheriff's department serve it. And they do a wonderful job in the highest risk cases. We've referred to them, especially if they're firearms. But in this case, we said, we can serve it for you. You know, we had already gotten her a hotel room. We had gotten her food and diapers and everything to make it through the night. So our process server came back at 5:30, picked up the restraining order, talked to her, went over there. Within the hour he was served, and it was a move-out order. So she said to him, you need to move out. So the woman called the sheriff and said, has he moved out yet? And they said, no, we don't have it in our system. He literally, God bless him, this law enforcement officer went to the hotel, got a copy of her proof of service, went back to the apartment and got him out so that she could take her baby home last night and be safe. What a wonderful gift.
That's in less than a 24-hour turnaround.
That was 12 hours.
Wow.
Wasn't that amazing?
Yes.
So having this private process server has been a game changer for safety reasons and for comfort reasons and everything else. So we have that. And then we have, and I'll say with this, one of the biggest gaps that we have in this community is emergency shelter. And I define emergency shelter as 1 to 5 nights. So, for instance, she could not have gone home last night. Most of the people who come in can't go home safely, and there aren't emergency shelters available. And so we have done our best, and we are doing our best to try and fill that gap. We have our big day of giving funds all went to paying for these motel rooms. We've contracted with a motel group to have a certain number of rooms where we can put people, they can go in under an alias, we can put them there 24/7. We absolutely will not and have not ever let anybody go from our place out into the street. We just can't do it. So we don't have it in our budget, but we are absolutely 1,000% committed to this. And I hope that the community will hear this and understand the dire need that we've got to provide more emergency shelter in our community for these people. So we provide that. We provide wraparound case management for each person. So that case manager will walk them through from a place of danger and trauma to one of safety and hope, whatever that takes. So we also have a housing program. Speaking of emergency housing, we have a different kind of housing. It's domestic violence housing first. We have 2 people who work on this full time. We can provide each victim, client, survivor, whatever term we're using at that moment, up to $5,000 for moving expenses, first and last month's deposit, incidentals, etc.
Wow.
And those are federal funds that come through the Office of Emergency Services. And that has been a game changer too, because we want to get especially these families into a safe and good location.
That's amazing that there's that much money to support, and that's just an individual. $5,000 seems to me would go a long way.
It's a game changer. It takes them from possibility or reality of homelessness into a place where they can, get settled, where they can get a job, where they can get their kids into school, et cetera, et cetera. So the housing program we have is phenomenal. Our legal services, I want to say that I'm backtracking, but, we primarily focus on restraining orders because that's just the bandwidth we have. We have some limited representation, especially for the kids or for the elders or for some trials, but we refer as many as we can to the Sacramento Justice League. They're a great partner, and that's a group of volunteer attorneys who will take one case at a time to help through. So that's a good thing.
Are they doing that on a pro bono basis?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, it is wonderful. We're so excited to have started a high-risk team this year at the Family Justice Center. And what a high-risk team is identifying people who are at the highest risk of either, death or
abuse,
really bad abuse. We always have abuse, but, there are levels. So these are the highest risk people. And an example, so on that high-risk team, God bless all of them, we have law enforcement, the District Attorney's Office, Adult Protective Services, we have probation, the Bear Clinic. All these people come together when called. So, for instance, a story about that, a law enforcement officer called us and said, I'm at McDonald's, and there's a woman here with 5 kids. She has nothing. She just ran away. Unbelievable. Can you help us? And it's like, oh, man, 5 kids. So we said, tell her to stay there, do what you need to do, we'll be there. Well, it took us a couple of hours because first thing, we have some vans, thank God for that, but we had to get 5 car seats. We didn't have 5 car seats. So we had to, pull on our partners and go buy a couple of extra, and then we picked her and her 5 kids up, brought them back to the Family Justice Center. She was totally traumatized. She never had a cell phone. She'd rarely been out of the house. He kept her under his thumb, and he had beat her very badly, which is why she'd finally gotten out. So we got her into a hotel. We did all that we do, and she was tempted to go back because she said, I don't know how to do anything. I can't take care of my kids. I don't have anything. So it was a long process with her, but the district attorney's office enhanced them. First of all, they found the guy, and he was a bad guy with firearms. They were able to put bail enhancements on him while we got her settled in a safe place. We ended up partnering with St. John's, and she and the 5 kids are at St. John's. They're in their 4th or 5th month there now, and they're thriving.
Wonderful.
It's wonderful. And it's only because of this cooperation and identification of this high-risk team that, everybody knows if one of the law enforcement officers calls the Bear Clinic Hospital saying this is very high risk and we have a checklist that we can go
protocol
from.
You have to follow.
Yeah, and identify them. And we are convinced that we have helped to literally saved a few lives in that.
Oh, I'm sure more than a few.
Yeah.
And if not in the literal sense, meaning life and death, but certainly lives going forward to productivity versus homelessness and dependent on everything.
Right. This is a state-funded program. We're so grateful to the state of California because we were able to put together a very robust human trafficking program. We were the first, and we established the first and the only 24/7 hotline for human trafficking victims in the community. We have that number, and I'm sure we'll share it. But it started slow. It's all built on trust. So a few of the human trafficking victims called. Word got out on the street. We got more calls. Now law enforcement calls. FBI has even called and asked us for assistance. But that phone stays busy. But because there's so much funding through the state, we've been able to do kind of the same thing. We've gotten these women off the street into housing. 2 partners have been great. Amazon has offered employment, and Rayleigh's has offered employment. So once these people get to the point where they're stable enough to get a different kind of employment than they've had in their past, These, especially Rayleigh's and Amazon, have been patient and encouraging and understanding and have given them jobs, and some of them are just thriving. So that we're thrilled to have that program.
What an accomplishment. I had no idea that it went that far from support all the way to
it's all
employment.
The way. Yeah. Isn't that great?
It is amazing.
It is amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
I work there, right?
Right.
Every day I'm amazed at what our team does and what our partnerships are able to do. Kids, we love the kids. We're so dedicated. So we have a child therapy program. We thought that was critical because these kids are the collateral damage of everything they go through. And we have another program. It's called Catch Children and Teens Creating Hope. We keep the kids engaged. We offer them opportunities that they've never probably had before. Like, we took a bunch of kids to the beach. They'd never been to the beach.
Yeah.
They'd never seen the snow. They'd never walked on a college campus. Those kind of things to say, this world is so much bigger and more wonderful than you've had the chance to experience. So we want to offer all that to you. And then we love this. It's called Camp Hope America. It's a camp that the program is all around building self-esteem, believe in yourself, believe in others, believe in your dreams. So there's a whole program, curriculum that the kids aren't aware of, really, but it works, So this year and the past couple of years, we've taken them up to Truckee, to this wonderful place. It's kind of like a outward bound light, So they get to go rock climbing and rafting and rappelling and campfires and all those wonderful things. And they get to be kids for a week. And they also get to have some really strong male role models. Many of them have not had that. Some of the kids who have gone to our camp, they've watched their parents be murdered. I mean, their mom. Horrible stuff that they've been through. And kids have a hard time talking to other kids about that, but when they're in a safe environment and they know that everybody around them has been through the same thing, they just the load lightens.
Sure.
And it's just marvelous. So
and it's important for them to release that too.
Oh, absolutely.
They've got to get that toxicity out of their system so they can move on forward.
Yeah. Some of the kids, we've been doing this. Actually, it started even before we opened our doors. So we've been sending kids to camp now for 9 years. Some of those who went early on are coming back as counselors.
Wonderful.
Isn't that great? Yeah, taking their own vacation time and coming back. One of the things we do that's probably, it's just barely mentioned on our website, is the training that we do. We do it for 911 dispatchers, law enforcement, emergency room physicians, etc. There are others that we do it. And this is a hard one for people to understand and to realize, but strangulation is a huge issue when it comes to domestic violence. We didn't used to ask the question, have you been strangled? Now we ask that question.
Mm-hmm. And I did. I saw that on the website, the signs of strangulation.
Right.
I was like,
More
really?
than 50%, I would say probably 70% of the victims who come in have been strangled. They'll sometimes say, oh, he just choked me. Well, first of all, choking is internal, strangulation is external. Mm-hmm. Somebody can kill somebody within a minute or two. There can be internal damage that's not discovered. Bruises don't often show up till later. Strangulation is a huge, huge thing. And this is crazy. It's been documented research that people who are stranglers are the ones who commit mass murders.
Oh.
So we can go down a lot of what we, in Las Vegas and Florida and all these places, they've been stranglers. Stranglers are also the ones who kill cops, who kill law enforcement officers. So what we do, how that translates to our commitment to training about strangulation, bringing it into the forefront. We have trained 911 dispatchers to ask 5 critical questions while they're on the call with the victim. And one of the questions is, have you been strangled? If the answer is yes, it goes up to the highest risk. Mm-hmm. Because if a woman or person, it's usually women, have been strangled, their chances of dying at the hands of that person go up 750%. If they've been strangled more than once, it goes up 1,000%. If they've been strangled, that means the law enforcement responding officers are at a greater risk. So we do this to help keep our officers safe. We do this so that when they get there and the woman has been strangled, then they will call for the EMTs to do an assessment. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. We created a strangulation protocol that was adopted within our community, and it's also become a model for communities throughout the United States that's being replicated so that everybody's on the same page and understands the danger and the prevalence of this.
I had no idea.
Most of us wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have reason to. But when we live in this world and we find out this information and we start to make those connections, it's devastating. But if we can identify it, then we can help to prevent it or at least treat it before somebody dies.
Right.
So that's what that training is about. I'm excited to announce for the first time that on January 6, 2025, we will be launching a telecare initiative at the Family Justice Center. This is going to be a game changer because what happens when somebody has been, abused or physically injured or strangled, the last thing they want to do is go to the hospital. They don't want to sit in the emergency room. We had a woman, God bless her, she was in there from, I think it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 5:30 the next morning, waiting to be examined. Of course, they don't want to do that. And of course...
Especially if they have children. What are they going to do with the child?
She held a baby. Yeah. That particular person I'm thinking of had a baby. So that keeps a lot of people away from getting the help that they need. So we have been working with a team of emergency room physicians who are willing to take these calls. We can set up a monitor at the Family Justice Center that can have a telecare communication. If the physician, the ER doc, decides that, yes, you really do need to come in, they have created this so the woman comes in. They don't have to go through the registration. They don't have to do any of that, take all the resources of the emergency room. They'll come in. They've already been prescribed what they need. So it's called a CTA exam, for example, for strangulation. They'll get to the emergency room. She's already been checked in. She just goes in for that exam. She walks out. Isn't that great? I mean, it's going to save the hospital systems untold amounts of money.
Right.
The victim's going to get care. These ER docs are going to get a special place in heaven.
Right.
And it's going to be a game changer. I'm so excited for that.
Well, it's going to open the doors to so many more people who they're not coming in because they know the lag time is too long. And so they just deal with it and possibly go on to greater trauma.
Right. So I'm so excited. So that's going to happen January 6th.
January of next year.
Correct. So you can imagine, I mean, we're having to do a lot of the groundwork and figure a lot of the protocols and everything out. But these ER docs are committed.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just wonderful. And then another thing that we have, it's called the Hidden Homicide Project, and that's under the Alliance for Hope. There are a number of people who have died where the coroner has said this is a suicide, but there's a huge history of domestic violence and many indicators that perhaps this was a homicide and not a suicide. So we have together helped pass legislation, which we hope the governor is going to sign within a couple of weeks. It's SB 989. Senator Ashby and Senator Rubio carried the bill for us. And it is going to, one of the things it's going to say is that if there has been an alleged suicide, but there's a long history of domestic violence or any history of domestic violence, it needs to be investigated as a possible homicide. That's huge. We have a particular case that we've been working on now for well over 2 years. A woman was killed by her husband. We are 1,000% convinced. We have a national team of experts that's been working on this with us. We are convinced that he killed her, but law enforcement officer came in, saw her hanging, and said, suicide. Well, he's next of kin. The one who killed her is next of kin. So he was the only one who could get the records. He's the only one that they would release photographs to, coroner's reports, all this stuff. So we are working and hoping and praying that we bring this person to justice. He did go on to hurt somebody else. He did spend time in prison. He was willing to kill the next person. He didn't, but he tried. So we know he had the capacity to do this, and we believe that he did this. So, and that happens very frequently.
I would imagine.
It happened. They have cases all over the United States. Some of the Alliance for Justice hidden homicide cases have been featured on Dateline. This happens, and we need to help people understand prevalence.
I would even imagine the trauma gets to such an extent that it's trauma-induced suicide. Maybe you didn't literally cause the death, but over time, it was your action that forced this person
and that I'm sure that
situation.
Sometimes happens as well, where you just lose hope.
Correct.
Yeah, but these are other cases where it's just somebody's gotten away with murder.
Right.
So we've got experts working on that, and we're grateful for that. We also, I'll just say the last thing, we just have a robust internship program. So we have interns all the time from, master's level social work interns that help us do all this work.
I would imagine probably law enforcement or students in a variety of different capacities.
We've had criminal justice.
Yes.
Yeah. Primarily but we also have had therapy interns, child therapist interns. And so we're grateful for their time. But, they certainly help us. But our commitment is we want to help you understand whatever field you go into, what the issues are that will be coming to you.
Well, it's good to know, too, because even just people maybe hear this and refer and say, did you know? And you have, influx of even more because more interns is better than less, for sure.
Yeah, we've had some
especially based on your need.
Right.
Which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
The conversation continues after we recognize the folk making this program possible. I was in the media business for over 35 years and had the great privilege of working with Runyon Saltzman, RSE, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations. We collaborated on many different campaigns, but their commitment to the nonprofit sector hasn't changed since their founder, Gene Runyon, started the agency. Over many years and many campaigns, Runyon Saltzman has been committed to improving lives by tackling California's most challenging issues. Guided by research-informed strategies and insightful, creative solutions, RSE develops innovative communications campaigns that raise awareness, educate, and reduce stigma in diverse communities throughout our state and beyond. To learn more about RSE, visit rs-e.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. We're back with Faith Whitmore of the Family Justice Center. So crisis intervention, legal services, youth, survivor support, you have a lot of stuff going on. How many people do you have working for the Family Justice Center?
Okay, so this is amazing. We only have 25.
Wow.
We have 25. We're very light at the top. We have a very skeletal crew of administrators, me, Deputy Director of Development, and the Executive Assistant. The rest are program people, and they do all this. And they are the most passionate, committed, loyal staff I could ever imagine. They will not give up. I left last night at 7. There were still people there with other people. We just are so committed to not letting anybody go if they still need our help.
Well, I imagine that could be never ending.
Well, it feels like it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right?
But this leads into the collaboration, right? So we can't do everything. We absolutely cannot do everything, and we don't intend to, and we don't expect to. And collaboration is core to the mission of the Family Justice Center. So we collaborate with a lot of community partners, and it's the only way we can do it. And it's the best way to do it because there are lots and lots of us, and we should be working together. Sometimes we don't, and that's too bad. But what drives us is what's best for the client. If we happen to have it here, great. If it's someplace else, we will do our best to do the warm handoff and get them to who can do it better.
And you can't do it all.
We can't. We absolutely can't.
But again, with that scope of service, you have a myriad of people, starting with law enforcement down to healthcare, and then the other nonprofit services that exist that clearly you opened with collaboration. You don't exist without collaboration because if law enforcement isn't feeding you in a reciprocal way, there is no service.
Right. So we get referrals from law enforcement, from the family court, from partner agencies, word of mouth. They heard us on the street. I don't know, but they keep coming.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure the street is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if somebody has a positive experience, especially I'm thinking in trafficking, sometimes they end up back in a situation and they can at least communicate with each other to say you need to go here.
And that's how, for the human trafficking program, it's almost all been word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful group of reciprocity that it's a great web to be tangled in. Funding, you mentioned the state funding the organization. How are you funded? Where does the money come from?
Okay, so we get federal funds, and that comes through the Office of Emergency Services.
Okay.
We get some state funds. The state is supplying us with the human trafficking, and we have a small grant for legal services through the state. We have our one big fundraiser every year. We have...
Which is? What do you call it?
Celebration of Hope.
Okay, and when does it usually take place?
In September.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have private foundations, and we have individual donors.
Okay.
So we put it all together.
If money weren't an object, what would the organization look like? What would be different that you do today that obviously budgets exist?
Right. I think what we would love is to have more partners under one roof. And that's the model of the Family Justice Centers in other parts of the country. It's wonderful because we're kind of like franchises, you know, so each community supports the Family Justice Center as it can, and hopefully it grows. So we have, for instance, a Family Justice Center in Tennessee that takes up one entire block.
Wow.
They have all the law enforcement for family violence, detectives, everybody's on site. They have a shelter, they have medical, they have childcare, they have all these partners all under one roof. And how great is that? Because then the person doesn't even have to go anywhere else. It's all right there. We would love to expand. We are on the 3rd floor of the Child Support Services building. The assessor used to have the rest of the floor, but she moved out, and so there's like 40,000 square feet. We would love to have all the partners in there. Rent is very, very expensive. But we dream. We dream that someday we could have, like, a Tennessee kind of Family Justice Center. Milwaukee, another one, has a whole square block. Some are much smaller than we are. Some are under the District Attorney's office. Some are 501c3s, which we are, so we're independent that way. That would be our dream, is just to expand the cooperation, the collaboration, all to be in one place so that we can support each other, so we can support the clients. I think that would be our dream.
So under the guise that we have people that might hear this who have real estate downtown, which we know is vacant, right?
Right.
They can do a long-term free lease.
Wouldn't that be
for
great?
The family. Yes.
I mean, it would be phenomenal. And, the thing is, the work of the Family Justice Center and the other agencies who are doing like work, we're keeping this community safer than it could ever be. We are absorbing a lot of the costs, keeping people out of the emergency rooms, keeping law enforcement officers from having to go back to the same address time after time after time because there was nowhere to go before, right? Or they weren't aware of it.
Keeping them off the streets,
We're
too.
keeping them off the streets. Homelessness is a huge issue, but we will not let anybody go out homeless from our place. So, nonprofits fill such a need in our communities, and it's hard. We always feel like we're begging for money because we are.
Yes.
It takes money to do all this, but the return on the investment, I don't even know if we could ever measure it.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Because it's not all visible. It's not all tangible.
Right.
So much of it is a soft benefit that we just don't get to recognize. I mean, how do you put a value on a person who could have been homeless, who now is working for you as an employee, who's now able to feed their children, house their children, get a car, do all the things that, boost the economy,
Exactly.
if not the mental well-being and that break of generational challenge, whether it be, violence or imprisonment or homelessness or whatever that cycle of poverty is. The more we can interrupt that and change it, obviously the better for the community.
Absolutely. Can I say something else?
Of course you can.
Because I hope people are listening. But I want to say that we can serve anybody with any language. So we contract for translation. So that will never be a barrier.
It's not an obstacle.
It's not an obstacle. And I just want to mention some of our community partners, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for instance, there's a large Afghani population here in our community, and we partner with the Muslim American Society Social Services Foundation. So they are a wonderful partner. Not a lot of people know about them, but culturally they are able to help and trust, sometimes better than we can.
Sure.
So,
well, there's a faith-based camaraderie and common sense there. So
right. Yeah, with our human trafficking program, we partner with Community Against Sexual Harm. It's called CASH in Oak Park. They do a lot of the boots on the ground. Adult Protective Services is on site with us. We have some partners on site. I want them all. But, they come in 3 days a week so that the elders, especially who have, health challenges or transportation or whatever, they can just go into the office right there in our place. So we are grateful for that. We have the Lao Community Development Center. They're another wonderful partner, and they have a lot of resources they can share. Volunteers of America, we work with them with the Senior Safe House, the Natoli Center.
Sure.
So that's been a wonderful addition to our community. My sister's house is a partner. Weave is a partner. All the law enforcement agencies, McGeorge Legal Clinic. Some of the elders who come in have been abused financially. That's huge. And they are willing to take those clients because those cases can get complicated.
And those are legal cases,
Those are legal cases, and it can take a longer period of time than what we may be able to have available to them. So McGeorge has been a good partner. So we just have tons of partners, and I want to give them all a huge dose of gratitude for their cooperation and collaboration and commitment to the same things that we care about.
Yeah, not to mention your healthcare
all the healthcare
partners and your law enforcement partners.
Right, absolutely. We have
the sheriff, the city police, everybody.
They're great. The sheriff is on our board of directors. Kathy Lesser, chief of police Sacramento, is on our board of directors. I appreciate their commitment and their care for this.
Well, they know the benefit.
Yeah.
And if it helps them, especially after what we just learned with strangulation, the officer becomes an object now or a target, for that particular perpetrator. That's significant.
Right.
So now we go back to reality with the funding. What today is the greatest need that you have?
Well, I would say our budget is $3.2 million. I say that's a relatively small budget for all that we are doing.
It is, considering what you're doing. I'm just thinking other organizations that have either bigger and or smaller and where they fit into the scope of service. And yours is pretty astounding.
We started with 3 people 8 years ago, and we started with nothing. We literally didn't have a chair to sit in. So we've built it from nothing to what it is today in 8 years. And we've been blessed with the grants that we've received, the financial support that we've received from people, but I've also held on to every penny, because I just wanted to make sure that we were always going to be solvent and that we could meet our obligations and that we would be able to expand. So certainly financial contributions would be huge. We're facing a renewal of our lease, and rent is so expensive. We are hoping that maybe the county and some of the city entities around will see the benefit and want to contribute. I don't know. So certainly financial contributions, housing, our emergency shelter. If people wanted to designate money for that, it would be life-changing for the people who get to sleep safely with their kids someplace. So those are the main things.
So somebody can make a restricted donation and say, here's what I want it to go to.
Yes.
And that's important, I think, for people to understand, because they may say, well, the scope of everything you do, you got the state funding, federal funding, but I'd like to give to something I know impacts me locally right here, and that housing is one of those opportunities.
Right. On another level, we try and provide food for people who are going into these motels and stuff. Rayleigh's has been a good contributor. They've given us lots of food that we can give. We call it hotel food, something easy to eat in the motel. We can always take more donations of food. Meals on Wheels just last week gave us a lot of food. They prepared extra, I guess. So it's been great because people come in, they're hungry, they spend all day there waiting for a restraining order maybe. So a nice hot meal is great. So, and then snacks for people. We're starting a small boutique so that people can go get clothes and shoes and whatever they might need. So we're not asking for a lot of donations right now, but once we get that all up and running, we might be able to use that as well. We're starting an evergreen campaign, too, because, we have people who give on a regular basis. We have one person who gives $10 a month. Well, that's huge. That's $120 a year,
Right.
That adds up. We have people who give much more than that. But having a consistent knowledge of what can come in, that's really helpful when creating a budget and meeting the needs.
I would imagine at some point you might even be able to establish some sort of an endowment for the local orientation of it
Yes.
all. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
We really want to do that. We have somebody, a former board member actually, who has left us a considerable amount of money in his will. It's going to take a long time for that to come back to us because he had a large estate. But, people, I have put the Family Justice Center in my trust. I don't want them to kill me off too soon because they'll get a lot of money. But, that's another way to support that doesn't have immediate impact on somebody's life, but could save lives down the road.
It's just all amazing when we look at, the need of a community.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to get in touch or learn more about the organization?
The hotline first. Let me give that for the human trafficking hotline.
Mm-hmm. And I'll put this in the show notes, too, for the benefit of anybody that's listening.
Okay, that number is human trafficking hotline.
Yes.
844-664-SAFE. SAFE. 884-664-SAFE. Our website is sacramentofjc.org.
Okay.
We're on Facebook, and that one is Sacramento Regional Family Justice Center. We have an Instagram, and that one's Sacramento FJC. So those are the best ways. Our number is 916-875-4673.
Okay, and we will have that in the show notes as well.
Thank you. So those are all good ways to get in touch with us.
Excellent.
Give us a call. We love to talk, and there's more of me who love to talk. So
yes, and people need to be spoken to and heard.
Mm-hmm. So those are the best ways. Or come in, and we invite people in the community too.
Where is the location?
We are located on Power Inn Road, 3701 Power Inn Road. We're on the third floor of it's known as the, Department of Child Support Services. We're right across the street from the family courthouse. We invite people, not necessarily drop in, but if anybody would like to come take a tour, we're happy. We want to do that. We want to show people what we do and how we do it. And we've created a beautiful space. Because when we were doing this, I said, when people come in, it's about respect. And we want to respect them. We don't want them to come into something that looks dingy and dirty and cast off. No, here you are honored. And so we have beautiful artwork and furniture. And that was a very conscious choice. Mm-hmm. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful place to show
welcoming.
people.
And
it's very welcoming.
You want them to feel that warmth when they come in as opposed to something sterile or cold.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't that where we go for our traffic violations?
No, we don't.
It's not.
People do.
Good,
but
thank you.
But it's not
Thank
the
you
right place. That's a couple of blocks away.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not that place.
But it's close.
It's close.
All right.
It's 2 blocks away. That's on the other side of Folsom.
I'm glad you didn't ask why I knew where that was. Faith, this has really been informative, I think, for a lot of people who didn't know what the organization was or even that it existed, that there was an organization of this sort to benefit people in the community. With law enforcement, your legal support, the associations you have with so many other organizations, it's one of the most collaborative nonprofits we've spoken to in the program, obviously by need, but also by value. What a great way to secure support for the individuals who need it so much.
And that's based on we do what we do and we make the decisions we make based on what's best for the client.
And you started, you're in essence the founder of Sacramento's affiliation with it. So you've seen it from its birth, which is amazing. Your passion it just exudes. And I love that. I know people will hear it in your voice in the discussion. So thank you so much for what you do. Congratulations on where you're going, especially with the new program on telecare. I mean, that's really exciting to think that we can minimize the effort that somebody has to go through to serve that many more people. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for the contribution and the commitment you've made to making sure that the Family Justice Center is a significant resource in our community.
Thank you. It's been an incredible journey, and I couldn't be more grateful that I've been able to be
Well, you
part
should be
of it.
proud of where it is today.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If what you heard moved you, please reach out to that organization and do what you can to help. If you like and appreciate what we're doing to support local nonprofits, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share. If you're a nonprofit with an interest in participating in an episode, you can reach me at jeff@hearmenowstudio.com. If you have a need for the services or products our sponsors offer, please reach out to them. Cap Trust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives, and Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is a production of, is recorded at, and edited by Hear Me Now Studio.